Okay, it should have started. Why is it not starting?
So
Lawrence, we're having that problem we had before.
it's actually live now. It just shows Scott and myself live.
Okay, well, it's not showing it on my end then, so we will run with it. Hey, folks, this is Uncle Grumpy. Welcome to Grumpy Tonight. This is kind of an off the cuff, last minute show, but we've got some pretty important information here we thought we needed to bring to you right away. If you guys saw the show a couple days ago, we were talking about 1030, parts of 1030, and our concern about patient information being released to law enforcement. Lawrence has set up a scenario here that he thinks is possible, is what law enforcement might see when they pull you over. And we've had a bit of a conniption fit about this. We're a little upset about it. So we've been lucky enough that Scott Fetgatter, Representative Scott Fetgatter, has agreed to come on here tonight and help us talk about this. I don't think you guys can see me, but you can see both of them. So, Lawrence, why don't you start by setting up the parts of 1030 that we're talking about?
Okay, I'm going to make them available on the screen for everyone to see here. Some of you just might know the issue in general. Some of you might have actually looked at the text. And so here's the key issue. Senate Bill 1030, Section 4, Paragraph C reads, "The State Department of Health shall make available all information displayed on medical marijuana licenses, as well as whether or not the license is valid, to law enforcement electronically through the Oklahoma Law Enforcement Telecommunications System." All right?
So now everybody knows our concern here is that they're going to have our patient information when they pull us over for whatever minor infraction they pull us over for, and then that's going to lead to further examination. And as Lawrence pointed out a couple days ago, our concern is, since we have not yet had a chance to change the DUI laws in this state, we will actually all be legally impaired when we get pulled over if we have a cannabis card and have used cannabis in the last 30, 60, or even as far as 90 days. Representative Fetgatter, could you possibly shed some light on this and let us know what's going on here, what this is about?
Well, whether this Senate Bill 1030, this Section 4, subsection C, whether that language was there or not, our DUI laws are what they are at the moment. I have had conversations with some folks about running legislation next year to, really drill down and fix some of those potential problems out there. So whether this language was in the bill or not in the bill doesn't negate the fact that our DUI laws are already, set up. And currently, if you are pulled over, you could, if you test positive for THC in your blood, you could get a DUI. With that being said, there's no intent, and I've I've watched the the post and heard the stuff out there over the last week, and I understand the concern, but I just want to assure everybody that there is no attempt on the part of the legislature to tear the program apart, destroy the program, throw a bunch of people in jail. That's just not the case. I have personally spoke to the Commissioner of Department of Public Safety. He assures me that, DPS is not asking for a data dump of patients. This language was intended for commercial licenses, not patient licenses. We are having to work through that language and the interpretation of that language, with OMML and the different groups that may be interpreting it one way or another. But as of right now, there is not going to be a big data dump of patient data, to law enforcement. And the sky's not falling. We're not, the big bad wolf trying to, hurt the program. I've had to spend many hours on it this week, just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Well,
So
Channel
let me
6
ask a
has
question.
on their news feed today, they have a list of the new laws that are that the OMA has just released. releasing patient information, this data dump you're talking about, is on that list. The only thing is that's the only one that doesn't have a timeline for when it will be implemented. All the others
Well,
have a
let me
timeline.
it gives a timeline. It says August 29th. So I'm right now looking at the OMMA website. And so August 29th, it says Senate Bill 1030 requires the OMMA to share information displayed on medical marijuana licenses with the Oklahoma law enforcement telecommunications system. So what's displayed on our license? That's not just the 24-digit number, but that's also our name, what county we live in, and our picture.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you can listen to a news reporter on Channel 6, or you can hear me when I'm saying nobody is trying to derail. That, you know, this language has got to be looked at, and we are doing that. We're talking to all the parties that are involved, you know, and
Sure.
working to have a solution so that we don't have a big data dump that happens out there.
Right. So our worry is that the OMMA themselves are interpreting it as they're being required to have the data dump. That's what they seem to be indicating on their own website. That's our
Correct,
worry, that the
and
OMMA themselves seem to be viewing it this way.
I'm not saying that nobody should have been worried. What I'm saying is, Representative Beckles and I are in contact with OMMA. We are in contact with OHP, Department of Public Safety. We are working on a solution to make sure that this data dump does not happen.
Now, it's my, I'm under the impression it's OHP that wants this data dump.
That
Am I
that
correct
is
in that?
that's incorrect information. Like I said, when I talked to Commissioner Rhodes for the Department of Public Safety, which OHP falls under Department of Public Safety, so Commissioner Rhodes is over OHP. He assured me that there is not and will not be a request from OHP to dump patient information.
You know, what worries, of course, are out there because not only is there a worry that if the patient names are sent to law enforcement, then sheriffs in counties that aren't favorable to 788, African American drivers, and so many other people who feel themselves threatened by law enforcement will feel all the more threatened. And my understanding also is that the federal NICS system for background checks is integrated with law enforcement so that in theory, all the patient names then go into the NICS system, which will prevent anybody from purchasing firearms. You know, DHS might gain access. And so the scale of the worry is just enormous.
And while I want to interject with this, I understand the DUI laws would not have been changed whether or not this language was in there. I understand that. But this gives intent. If they were to able to run your tag, verify your insurance as they do, and verify then if you have a medical marijuana card, that could then give them a reason enough to further that search or that sobriety check or whatever they determine to continue to go after people with a medical marijuana card. I mean, we really see, it's a combination of everything, Scott. We've got this, we've got the housing authority denying people their housing. We've got the parts of the safety sensitive jobs, which makes it where anybody who gets a card can be fired for no reason other than getting a card. So when we say we feel like the program's under attack, it's not from one angle. It's never been from one position. I've stated from the beginning these attacks would come in small increments from many departments, and that seems to be how it's going.
Well, what I mean by my statement is whenever these things, you know, come across news feeds, Channel 6 runs it, you guys run it, whoever wants to run it. It's always that, you know, we're trying to attack the system, and that's just not the case. We're being the legislature You were involved in all the conversations. Lawrence, you've been involved in all the conversations. Many people have. There are times the legislative session is very hectic, and there's a lot of bills. And when the people voted for 788, they put a mandate on us to implement in 60 days. The initial thought was the legislature don't go touch it. Then once it passed and we saw problems, it was call a special session. That we weren't going to do that, so we had to, we had a lot of legislation that we had to move through. With that being said, there are things there'll probably be a few cleanup bills, I would say, definitely next session coming up. So what we have to do is we have to mitigate any possible scenarios from happening at this point, which is what we're working on. And so, I mean, as far as the housing authority, I mean, they're probably dealing with federal issues that they, in their mind, whether we interpret it one way or not, in their mind, they're probably looking at things from a different perspective as far as federal issues. So I mean, a medical marijuana program is not going to be perfect when you roll it out. And so we have to just work on these issues as they, come forward. Which I think you all would agree that John and I are always willing to try to help.
Right. It may not have been that this was your intention, but the problem is that the paragraph says that the Department of Health is statutorily required to make available all information displayed on medical marijuana licenses. So they can't pick and choose what information. The statute says that they have to provide all information, which includes patient names. Right? So the standpoint of the OMMA, as I understand it, is that the statute is now tying their hands, right? The statute is now tying their hands so that they have to provide all information, including patient names, which means that it gets integrated into the law enforcement database. And so as soon as you have a police encounter and they check your driver's license, they know that you are a marijuana card holder. And this would be enough of a reason for a lot of law enforcement to do a field sobriety test.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Again, I understand the concern. I get it. The only thing I can tell you at this point is that we're working towards a solution to make sure. John Eccles and I, and many other, others in state agencies and different groups do not want patient information being shared like that. We get it. What are you drawing?
Yeah, I'm just saying
that's not me, that's
here's
him.
the ambiguity. Yeah. The ambiguity is that is it when it says displayed on medical marijuana licenses, do they mean all medical marijuana licenses, patient medical marijuana licenses, or business medical marijuana licenses? And right, the natural reading of it is it just pertains to business ones, because everywhere else there's HIPAA protections for patients, right? And the rest of
in
Section
2612,
4
and I think it's 2612. I mean, it's very clear in statute.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this one subsection here in Section 4, subsection C. We have this one subsection that has thrown up this massive amount of concern. At the same time, when you look at 2612 and I believe even other sections of, I think it's all in 2612. There is explicit instruction on how to handle patient data and the confidentiality behind it. Now, I see and I hear a lot, what about HIPAA? What about HIPAA? What about HIPAA? Well, we know that HIPAA doesn't apply to medical marijuana. However, 2612 does. So the federal law doesn't apply to medical marijuana, but the state, we said we are going to make it apply. So I understand the concern here, and that's why I keep kind of just reverting back to we're working on a solution to make sure, but you can't argue this one not you guys, but I'm talking about, OMMA and different groups. They can't argue that there's explicit instruction that we are to follow HIPAA at the state level with this. We are to protect the identification of patients. So you can't have one and not look at the others.
Right. That's our thought as well. So that seems a logical solution for the OMMA to basically say, okay, well, we're gonna keep sealed. This is the language in other portions. It's gonna seal all the private information for patients, their name, their date of birth, and so on and so forth. All that is sealed. No one outside of the OMMA can gain that except in these special cases. It's not going to be data dumped. And so the only thing that the OMMA should be transmitting to law enforcement is the business database.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we all agree that's the way it's supposed to be read.
Right. And that's what we are working on with OMMA. And like I said, I can just assure you, I have a very good relationship with Commissioner Rhodes, Department of Public Safety, and I trust him when he tells me we are not going to request a data dump.
So a few days ago, on the OMMA.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Lawrence. Representative Fetgatter, are you saying this won't happen, that we have nothing to worry about?
I am saying that the only reason I'm hesitant to say you have nothing to worry about is because I can't control everybody. If I could, I would say that. But what I am telling you is that John Eccles and myself are in constant communication with daily, trying to figure out what approach we need to take here, and how do we make sure that OMMA doesn't take this as an explicit instruction to dump this data to all law enforcement. And we continue to work on that.
Okay, well, I want to say, go ahead, Lawrence, go ahead.
So a couple days ago, the OMMA website indicated right on the website that they would be supplying all this information, patient names and so on, to law enforcement, and then they changed the wording on the website to something that's more vague. Mm-hmm. So, right now, it does look like the OMMA is aware of our concerns, but the concerns have not been resolved. So I guess what I'm wondering is...
That's exactly why. And that's why. So a few days ago, when we started really having a lot of conversations around this topic, I don't know, was it last week or something, and they put this out, and then you saw the change in the language. That's because John and I are working with them to try to come to a resolution about the way they are interpreting the language.
So what I'm wondering about is who at the OMMA was about to give all the information to law enforcement? Who gave that order?
I haven't asked that question. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, Scott, Representative Fetgatter, I need to say, while I might have the utmost respect for you and Representative Eccles, it is not our nature to trust our government, so we're not going to relax on this. And as much as we might respect you, we are going to be worried about this until we see something that gives us the guarantees that we thought we had when we all voted for this and when this all started, because it really seems to be coming unraveled from our perspective. While I know it's not everything, and there's a lot of good things out there, and people's lives are getting saved every day because of this program, I'm still getting daily messages from people who are losing half of their housing payments or their rent payment because they got a card and other crazy stuff like that. I'm still hearing from these people every day. It seems like the state seems to be finding just new ways to screw with them. And now that we have a card, we're all on a list for them to pick us out and go after us. So it's our nature to not trust the government. I apologize, but that's just how it is.
Well, I mean, it's your nature not to trust government because you've been partaking in illegal activity for however many years. So I get that. I understand that. And now it's legal.
Wait a second. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Let me finish.
Excuse me. You think I don't like it because I've been partaking in something illegal for all these years? But that makes me nervous about the
You
government.
are you going to
The
let me
government's
finish, or do
history
we
makes
just
me
end the
nervous about the
conversation?
government.
Do we end
Go
do we
ahead.
end the conversation, or do I get to talk?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I understand that the nature of that, and I've been very clear about that this whole time. I understand that. I get that. I understand. I'm sympathetic and empathetic to it, and so I know why you all don't trust government. I get it. It's okay. But when you have some people that are working with you, to try to help, at some point you have to form some level of trust, which I think reality is that you have. We have a certain level of trust between us. But to make a blanket statement of we don't trust government, well, that's not going to get us anywhere. I mean, because if you and I can't trust each other, it's very difficult for us to have a relationship and a conversation. And so I'm just saying that, while there may be people out there that are bad actors, there's bad actors on every side of the issue. And there always has been. I mean, if we want to talk about bad actors and not trusting government, I can talk about the conversations I've had with labs in the last week, where people are bringing in flour and that's, testing positive for pesticides and mold. And then this lab rejects it, so they take it to another lab. So we have to have some level of trust between some of us in order to be able to work through these issues. But
Do you know Ronald Reagan's famous statement about the government? His famous
yeah,
statement, the
sure, trust but
scariest
verify.
words in the English language.
That's all we're trying to
No,
do,
the
Scott.
scariest words in the
Sure,
English
no,
language.
I get it. I get it. I'm perfectly fine with it. What I'm trying to help you all understand is that we're very aware of the situation, and John and I are working, to make sure that your concerns don't become a concern. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so
Right.
that's why I said earlier, we're working with OMMA. I've personally spoken to DPS. We're making sure that you all don't have to worry and lose sleep over this. But when Chris, when you post stuff out there that we're trying to take you down, it's just not correct. I mean, that's just not good information.
Well, think about the government as a many-headed beast, right? And so it's not just a uniform thing, it's a Hydra, right? And so there may be, some quadrant of the government that we do feel we can partner with that are actually representing the people's interests. But,
Sure.
studies have clearly indicated that elected officials don't genuinely represent people's interests. There's constantly studies showing that what representatives vote for versus what the people want are not connected. This is empirical data. So, it's part of the American spirit to not trust government, as I see it. And that
No,
doesn't mean that we think they're
I
all
don't disagree
liars.
with. I don't
Yeah.
disagree with that. What I'm trying to
It's that
get across.
we approach with skepticism, right?
I That's perfectly fine. I understand that, and I'm good with that. All I'm trying to get you all and the viewers and the listeners tonight to understand is that we are very aware of your concerns on this. Um, and maybe there should have been a different word added to this language, but it wasn't. So John and I are working, with the agencies
Yeah.
involved to try to make sure that this language is not misinterpreted and not overlook all of the other language that's in there, that deals with the confidentiality of the patients, and make sure that we don't have a group out there that dumps a bunch of information. And that was why the first call I made before I ever called OMMA was to Commissioner Rhodes at DPS to say, hey, I need you to look and see if you, first of all, are you requesting a data dump? And secondly, why? And thirdly, I need it to stop if you are. And he called me back about 15 minutes later after verifying, no, we haven't requested a dump. And no, we're not going to request a dump at your request, to make sure that
And
we will keep our eye on it,
you
make
know,
sure it doesn't happen
right. Just to be clear,
from
we
from
genuinely
their.
appreciate that. We genuinely appreciate that work. We genuinely appreciate the fact that you are looking out for the interests of the people of the state.
Sure.
But somebody, right? This wouldn't be even arising if it wasn't the case that somebody out there was building the momentum towards that data dump. So
Yeah,
maybe it was
we
just,
didn't we didn't write this in there. Look, Scott,
Yeah,
we didn't write this in there, and you've taken extreme offense to the idea that we've even brought this up, and that we don't trust the government. You think that we should just trust you guys because we know you, and it just with the government it doesn't work that way. As you said yourself, you're not in charge of everybody. So while we might trust you and John, there's a whole lot of other people that get to decide this. And so our fears are real, and they're not imagined. And my posts, which may sound inflammatory to you, to us out here, this is what it looks like. This is what we see. And you can't discredit that by saying, well, I'm closer, I know better because I'm in here. We don't see that.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. And quite frankly, when I was asked to be on the show, I just saw the post for the first time. And that's why I said, let me think about it, because I knew that I was going to come into the show, you know, I'm not taking it personal. I think you say that to me when I get frustrated, but if I say that to you when you get frustrated, you rebut me. I'm not taking it personal. What I'm telling you and what I want your listeners and everybody to understand is while we don't control everybody, and I get that, we do have the ability to make sure things, you know, work the way they're supposed to work. And we do have the influence with agencies to have that communication at a level to where we can make sure that they're doing things and not misinterpreting things. So it's not a personal thing. It's just a matter of the sky is falling all the time. I mean, we've been out of session now since I don't know, the end of May, middle of May, you know, and I can't, you know, there's been 3 or 4 things the sky's falling and it hasn't fallen yet. And so you know, in a perfect world, I guess we wouldn't get so wound up. We would try to work through the issues. And that's why I guess, you know, I'm effective a lot of times is because I don't overreact situations. And I don't underreact. I just react and respond to try to make sure that we fix them. And that's what we're doing here with this. And so
Well,
when you're typically in response mode as opposed to reaction mode, it you know sometimes it throws you for a little bit of a loop. I mean, I'm going to get off this phone and you know and this video, and I'm not going to be mad at you and you know all that kind of stuff. I just you know I say it the way I see it, and sometimes just like you all do, but sometimes that's not taken very well, and that's not the intent. I want everybody to understand on this particular issue, we are working to make sure that OMMA is not distorting the language and overlooking the other language in 2612 that pertains to the confidentiality of the patient. It's utmost importance to us to make sure that those things happen. And by the way, just kind of for a laugh, to kind of break up the mood here for a second, if you see me flipping my fingers up in the camera like this, and you see that I have pink fingernail polish on,
Oh.
my
we're gonna let that one go.
my 3-year-old granddaughter has been playing house with Poppy this evening, so
Okay, well that's allowed.
we
We
wanted
just
to
figured it
paint
was
my
part of your
fingernail.
evening beauty routine.
That's
Lawrence,
right,
would you
that's
shrink
right.
that big picture, please?
Oh,
So,
okay.
so I do want to apologize if I come off, you know, that I'm taking it personal because that's not it. And Chris and I, and Lawrence and I, we've all had, you know, banter back and forth on issues. And I just want the viewers and you know the listeners to know that you know I'm not angry. I'm not taking it personal. I just want to fix the problem, and I want you guys to feel like you do. While you don't trust government, I want you to feel like at least you do have some advocates up here that are working to try to make sure that what you're wanting is being taken care of.
What's the
Okay,
price of
Scott. Well,
liberty?
what's that,
Do what?
Lawrence?
What's the price of liberty?
The price of
Okay.
liberty.
You guys are the ones who had an American education. What's the price of liberty?
The what?
The
It is
Added
price of
fighting
development.
liberty.
every day. That's the price, Lawrence. It's fighting every
E-
day. It's never
Eternal
surrendering. It's always
vigilance.
staying on top of them. It's trust but verify. That's the price of liberty. That's what
That's
I
right.
think the
Price of
And I'm
price
good
liberty
is.
is
with that.
eternal vigilance.
So
You,
we've got many
it's
more of these to go, Scott. Many more of these to
no, and
go,
it's
I
fine,
assure
and
you.
it's fine, and we'll have many more arguments, and we'll get mad for a minute, and then we'll get glad for a minute, and then we'll celebrate at
Well,
the end when we're all, you know, pleased and happy with where we ended up on this stuff. I
okay,
mean, because
Representative
it's
Fetgatter,
critical.
I want to thank you for coming on and short notice and walking through this with us. I do appreciate your time. I didn't mean to take any time away from your granddaughter. You need to
You're
get back
fine.
and play with her or put her to bed. It's almost 10 o'clock. If she's
I
3, I
got
think it's time to put up the nail polish and go to bed.
I've got to go find polish remover. So I asked my wife. I said, "Do you have some nail polish remover?" "Oh yeah, somewhere." And
Oh,
then she
yeah.
can't find it. So I
You're
said,
supposed to ask for
Mineral
that
spirits are
before you let
acetone.
him paint your nails. Don't you know how
I
this
said,
works?
I'm not, I'm not probably going to be going out in public with painted fingernails. I guess we better go find some polish.
You might
But
want
look,
to.
hey, I appreciate you all. And if, like I said, if it come off like I was upset or frustrated, you know, it's not so much that as it is. I just know how much a person like me has had to move on this issue to get to a place to where I could support and defend and you know the patients and the industry and where I came from, as you well know, Chris, you know, a year and a half ago. And so, you know, probably at times I come off that way, and it's because I do want to make sure that our program, and I've said it many, many times, I want to make sure if we're going to have a program, we have the best program in the country, and that's what I'm working towards. And you know, I get accused of all sorts of stuff, and that's fine. I can take it on the chin like the best with the best of them. But at the end of the day, everybody on this program tonight, I just want you to know that I am working to make sure that your liberties are preserved, that your confidentiality with your prescriptions or your recommendations and your medications and your ability to grow it in your home and self-medicate and all those things are what I've stood for and worked towards this whole time. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I will be on the phone tomorrow with OMMA again, making sure that we're headed down the right track with this and that we're
Okay,
not
well,
overlooking all the other information.
I've heard both you and Representative Eccles say something about meetings next week now, so I figure we'll let this lie for about a week and then we'll be all over you again. How's that sound?
You'd call me anytime.
All right, Representative Fetgatter, I
Some,
appreciate your
sometimes
time. You can
Lawrence
go
and
ahead and
I,
hang up from your end.
sometimes Lawrence and I text like at 1 or 2 in the morning. So,
I've heard.
all
I hear about
right,
all
guys,
of it.
have a good evening.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Scott.
much.
Okay, it should be us side by side now. There we go. Well, Lawrence, what do you think?
By the way, there's no video from you. There's only your audio.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
We'll live with it this time. We'll
So
figure it out next time.
the price of liberty is eternal vigilance.
Is that,
And
well,
we should
that's
never
pretty
just
much what
take
I
it for,
described, was it not?
yeah, and we should just never take for granted that the government is actually going to be looking out for our interests. And
Yeah.
so
Trust
obviously
but
what we have
verify.
is a situation here where, you know, the language in this statute was screwed up. Somewhere along the ways, it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. And that opened the door, as I see it, to somebody out there who said, we have a chance. We have a chance to achieve something here, which is to basically allow law enforcement to have access to the names of everybody who holds a card. To what end? Well, you know, again, the scenarios are pretty scary when you think them through. You know, in a couple of years, presumably it's not going to matter. Hopefully the federal government will change the laws, but between now and then, you know, every single person with a card holder basically will be marked for those years as a quasi-criminal.
Yeah, it is very concerning. Well, let's hope that they can get done what they say they're trying to get done. I guess that's really all
And
we
if
can
they
do for
can't,
right now.
if it doesn't go the right way, if Representatives Eccles and Fetgatter aren't able to achieve it, what that does is it tells us that there's some pretty powerful entities in this state that made sure that they got their way and their interests of whatever the police exceeded the privacy and the liberty of the citizens of this state.
Yeah. And there's only about, one or two people that could be, but we'll get to that later if it happens.
150,000 cardholders will become quasi-criminals. Every time they get behind the wheel, they're at risk of losing their driver's license. They may not have used cannabis for months. They might have used it the night before. They might have just used an ointment. They might have used federal legal hemp. But every single time they get behind the wheel, they could lose their driver's license, which effectively for most people would mean that they'd be unemployed.
Right.
150,000 more unemployed individuals because of this provision. That's the risk.
Yeah, and look, it's not just the DUIs that scare me. I think one of the things I'm most concerned about right now actually is the housing authority and what they're doing. As
Yep.
Fetgatter has said, perhaps they're reading it differently, but we've been over that law and the federal law backwards and forwards. These people in this state of Oklahoma are making a choice to deny people their
Yes, they
housing
are.
voucher, not by orders of the
That's
federal
right.
government, but by their own decisions. They're making the choice
That's
to
right.
deny people. And the people that are notifying me every other day that they're losing their mortgage payment or their rent payment or losing their apartment or whatever else they're losing are real people in real distress. And here's
Yep.
the thing. For them, the sky is falling. The sky is falling right
Exactly.
now.
That's
The
right.
sky was falling
Right.
last
The
week.
sky
The
has
sky was falling
fallen
last
upon them.
month.
Right.
The sky is falling, just not for everybody in the
Right.
States.
That's something that is often lost, right? Because if you're living comfortably, if you're enjoying, the roof above you, you forget the fact that other people aren't in that situation. And so, how many hundreds of people, thousands of people in this state have already or will soon be losing their housing vouchers because of this arbitrary decision on the part of local authorities. The Federal Housing Authority, Housing and Urban Development, HUD, they explicitly said it's up to the local authorities. That's been a decision that's been, it's been repeatedly reaffirmed by HUD that it's up to the local authorities to make this decision. And so what are the authorities in the state of Oklahoma doing? They're saying even if you have a card, and if they want to hand over the decision even to landlords, having a card doesn't mean you're in violation of any federal law. Having a card itself shouldn't be a basis for denial of anything. It's just a card. How could somebody lose their housing base on basis of having a card? You're a member of a club. Freedom of association. Is it just me? Yes. Well, it seems that it's just me. I guess that's it, folks. Stay grumpy, and I'll see you on the road.
Are you gone?
Oh,
There we
you're
go.
back.
I'm back. I am back.
I just closed the show out for you.
Did you
We
just
can see
close
you
the
again.
show?
Oh, go on. You can do. You can say
All
what
right.
you
Well,
need to
my
say. I thought you
internet went
disappeared.
dead. What?
You'll go on.
My internet. Now it's got my picture over your face. I don't know what happened. I think we need to call tech support and ask them what the fucking deal is.
Yeah, it's fine. Go on. Go speak. People can see both of us now.
It's offline, right?
No,
Are we still online?
no. Yeah,
Oh,
I
dude,
think.
I'm sitting here using the wrong language for that. Sorry, folks. I thought Lawrence logged us off. My internet went dead, folks. Sprint is doing a wonderful job. I apologize for the language that slipped out there. I thought we were offline. I still don't have the right screen. I've got the beginning screen right over Lawrence's face. I don't know what you guys are seeing. Lawrence, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I'm guessing you said what you needed to say.
Yes, I have.
Okay, folks. Well, that's it then. We are going to wrap it up for tonight. We will stay on this issue. Again, I apologize for the language that slipped there. I didn't know I was online. We will stay on top of this. We'll do another show in a few days, see where this is at. I also want to chase this housing issue a little farther. I think it's time we start giving the names and numbers of some offices people can call to talk to these people about this, because as we've said, this is a decision being made by people here in Oklahoma of their own accord. They're not being forced to do this by the federal government, and we need to put a stop to it. People are going to lose their houses, their jobs, now possibly their driver's license. This is why it looks bad, Representative Fetgatter. This is why it looks bad. Anyway, we'll trust that you guys can get this first part fixed, and we'll do another show on it next week. Until next time, folks, stay grumpy. I'll see you on the road.